Hello my friends, welcome back to Refit and Sail. Reef 2, this is the second Refit and Sail channel where I show you content which doesn't quite fit inside the normal Refit and Sail wrapper. And in this episode we're talking about solo sailing. So why would you want to go solo sailing? How to start, managing risk, preparing your boat, preparing yourself, that's another important one. How to sleep, that's a really big important one if you're doing a multi-day sail on your own. And a lot of this stuff, whilst it is very much solo sailing focused, does actually apply to short-handed sailors and even crewed sailors at times as well. So I hope you enjoy this episode. It is a pre-record, it's the second half of a presentation I gave to a whole bunch of Contessazeilers out in the Netherlands. And I have a very beautiful Contessa 32 behind me right now that I'm about to jump on board and sail to Falmouth. So stay along for a whole load of chat about solo sailing, why to start, how to start, why you might want to do it, and here's a tip: if you do start, you need to be careful because it's kind of addictive. So enjoy this video and I'll see you very soon. The second section of my little talk today is about solo sailing. Who solo sails? Wow, lots of you. That's good to see. Who doesn't solo sail but would like to?
Hey. I have to.
Ah, okay. It's fun, isn't it? Brilliant. I'm talking to the converted already. This is easy. My talk is done. Thank you for coming. How and why and a warning, solo sailing. This is part of a presentation that I have done previously about solo sailing, because I started off in a very, very small way and slowly developed my skills and my experience and my enthusiasm and my stupidity, and went from trying a little day sail one day, and eventually I sailed across the Atlantic the wrong way single-handed. But why do we solo sail? I'd love to hear your reasons, actually. Who put their hand up for who solo sails? Who wants to give a reason for going solo sailing? I'd love to hear it.
The quietness.
Yeah? You don't like sailing with your wife?
I also do like sailing.
No, it's a good reason. The quietness. Anyone else?
The own rhythm.
The rhythm?
The own rhythm of sailing.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
The sense of freedom.
Sense of freedom. Yep, absolutely. 100%.
No crew willing or available.
No crew, yeah. I mean, sometimes out of necessity. Because we don't have friends. Yeah.
Who likes sailing?
I understand. Who likes sailing? Okay, yeah. Well, good caveat. Well done. Anyone else? Go on. I want some more reasons. Rima.
Stepping out of your comfort zone.
Stepping out of your comfort zone is a great one. That's a big one for me. I love the challenge and putting myself into situations and then working out how to get myself out of them. Yeah, that's why we solo. I started out doing it because I just thought, how hard can it be? I read this book by some guy who put it on the internet, and it was an immensely helpful book, and I should reference him. I can't remember his name off the top of my head. Andrew Evans. Yeah, absolutely. Great book. Andrew Evans wrote this book about solo sailing. He made it available for free on the internet. I think you can now buy a new and improved version of it, but all credit to him. Great book, and it's helped an awful lot of people that either wanted to start solo sailing or sharpen their skills. And I went out in my GK24 one day, in my early days of owning my own boat, and just thought, how hard can it be? And just went out, baby steps, give it a little go, and I just thought, this is all right. This isn't too bad. Oh, do you know what? I wonder if I can get the spinnaker up on my own. Oh, okay, yeah, we're going to put this up. So there's a nice gentle force 2, spinnaker went, brilliant, fantastic. Oh, shit, I've got to get it down now. Okay, we can work this out. It's basically the same as doing it with crew, but you do everything. And it's fine, you just break it down into steps and you work out a process, and I read Andrew Evans's book and go, okay, we're going to pull this. And you know, I've raced for years, I'm used to putting spinnakers up and down. And you just basically just do everything, and you just make a procedure, work out a process which works for you and your boat, and you just get on with it. But yeah, for me, the challenge, the purity, Just being at one with the boat and the elements and the wind, it sounds a bit woo-woo, but it's nothing better than just being on your boat, on your own, beating to windward or scooting downwind with the spinnaker up. There's no one else around you. You're completely in tune with all the movements and all the feelings, the feeling of the wind and the sun and everything like that. It's just a magical, magical moment in time for me, at least. Yeah, problem solving, fun. That can be, fun and problem solving are sometimes mutually exclusive things. But yeah, this is actually a picture of me in Concerto doing my first race solo with Solo Offshore Racing Club. And I just thought, oh, do you know what? I'm just going to turn up. It's the solo round the island race. I just want to get round safely. I didn't have a very good autopilot, but I'd done a bit of solo sailing, and I went round and I came in third in IRC overall. And I was like, oh, this is quite good. Turns out I'm okay at this sailing thing. So yeah, anyway. So how did I start? Baby steps. If you haven't done it before and you're interested in doing it, just go. Oh, do you know what? It's a nice day. It's a force 3. The sun's shining. Let's just go out. We're not going to put the kite up. We're not going to take any risks, or even just don't go sailing. Because the hardest bit about solo sailing is coming out of the dock and getting back in again. If you can do that without crashing and no one's died, then you are winning. The sailing bit's pretty easy, actually, because it's the same as sailing with crew. You just do everything. But baby steps. Learn how to dock your boat on your own if you can. Managing risk is another big one. And just thinking about what can go wrong. And I think I'm trying to remember these. I should have. Do you mind if I just quickly look at what's on the next slide? Okay. Managing risk is a big one. Think about what ifs. What if I fall over? How do I stay clipped on? What happens when the weather gets bad? What happens when a sail rips? What happens when the engine stops and I'm just coming in and there's a ferry behind me? All these sort of fun things. There is a lot of risk management. Unfortunately, sailing is a dangerous sport. There's no way around that. Solo sailing is an exponentially more dangerous sport, unfortunately. And so for me, it's all about managing risks and thinking about all the things that can go wrong and doing your best to either have a plan in place for when those things go wrong, because it's not an if, it is a when quite often, or doing what you can to make sure you don't get into those situations that are unfortunately dangerous. If you're starting out, doing solo in company, which sounds again a bit unusual, is actually one of the best ways of going about it. So for my first 2 or 3 years of really getting to grips with solo sailing, I arranged with 2 and then the following year 3 other friends that were interested in solo sailing to have a solo week. And we literally just booked a week off work and we went off each in our Contessa 32 and said, right, each day we are going to go and sail somewhere all on our own. We make our own rules when we're out there, but we're heading today for Cherbourg, and then we're heading for Falmouth, and then we're wherever it was. And we'd do somewhere between 30 and 70 miles every single day, with the knowledge that actually if you have a problem, your friend is actually only a couple of miles over there and you can call them up on the radio, or actually that guy, your friend behind you, is actually keeping an eye on you, and if he suddenly sees your boat going in circles because you've fallen off, chances are he's going to sail over and say, oh, you're all right, George. And so actually that's a really nice way of doing it. It's a very sociable way of getting into sailing, getting into solo sailing and sharpening your skills. So it sounds like there's quite a few solo sailors here that, you know, if you want to do more adventurous solo sailing rather than just going out for day sails, that might be a nice way of doing it between you. You know, arrange a weekend or a week or whatever and just have a little cruise about. Doesn't have to be a race. Quite often it's a race. And yeah, I already talked about managing risk. So I think if this happens, then what? That's something I play. I do a bit of boat tuition, and it's quite often something I do with the guys I do work for. I say, okay, we're just motoring down the river, or we're just coming out of the entrance. The engine's just stopped. What are you going to do? Or we're just sailing along. Halyard's just broken on your main halyard. What are you going to do? you just come up with what-if scenarios. One of your crew is just falling over the side. What are you going to do? And just it gets people in the mindset of thinking about the scenario, and there is no right or wrong answer quite often, because there's 3 or 4 solutions to a problem sometimes, and as long as there's a good reason for going down one route or the other, that's fine, go with that, because some people are going to be very happy picking up a buoy under sail. Other people are not going to be so happy picking up a buoy under a buoy. You know, your engine's not working, so you need to sail into a harbour and pick up a mooring buoy or something. Some people are going to be very comfortable with doing that. Other people wouldn't. Other people will be, actually, I'd rather anchor because I'm far more used to anchoring. And if that's your comfort zone, then that's the right answer for when something goes wrong. But if you've thought about what to do next, then that's a really good way forward. The picture here is of some rigging. So when I was crossing out across the Atlantic in my westerly, I lost both of the aft lower shrouds within 20 minutes of each other at 2 o'clock in the morning, 120 miles from Antigua, which was exciting. But we'd already kind of talked about the what-ifs, what we're going to do. I was asleep down below, and we'd already said, right, okay, what happens if rigging breaks? Okay, first thing, you wake me up if I'm not awake. And the second thing is, okay, we look up the mast and we make sure everyone is off the deck. So if the mast falls down, no one's hopefully going to get hurt, or we get as minimal people on the deck as possible. If you don't need to be on deck to steer the boat, to solve the problem, you're down below. And the plan that we put in place all kind of came together. You know, it's like, okay, woke up George. George comes up. Okay, right, take all the load out of the sails. Let's take the load out, get rid of the sails. Right, okay, the mast is now doing this in the boat. Okay, and so I go on deck and I find the nearest piece of rope. That is the spinnaker pole downhaul, and I try and lash it back together. And whilst I'm lashing one side, the other side breaks because the mast is snatching backwards and forwards, and so I end up using the same piece of rope because I have a continuous downhaul that goes up one side of the boat for the spinnaker pole and back down the other. And so the spinnaker pole downhaul kept the mast up, and we were only 120 miles, I think, from Antigua, and I just said, you know what, we're carrying 300 litres of diesel, let's use it. And the wind was starting to die down by then anyway, so we motored the last little way. And I ended up having to buy some rigging in Miami and getting it shipped out to Antigua, and then checked all the other rigging on the boat. And it turns out we'd also cracked a stem ball on one of the other pieces of rigging. But we'd had a plan, we put it into place, no one died, we saved the rig, and we carried on sailing. Safety and preparation, you cannot go sailing without an autopilot. Unfortunately, that's the reality of life. There are many different options. When I first started sailing my Contessa, I had a Raymarine ST2000, which really isn't man enough for the Contessa, and I broke it many times. And eventually I ended up with an Evolution Pilot. But I also had this thing here. This is my westerly, but I had a Wind Pilot Pacific on the back of my Contessa, and that literally steered me all the way to the Azores and all the way back without me touching the tiller. I probably steered for half an hour on the way to the Azores, and the Wind Pilot did everything else. Just tweaked it a little bit, and it was absolutely fabulous. Used nose power, didn't complain, didn't have to feed it. Absolutely amazing. That's not to say other wind-powered wind vane steering systems are not as good. I'm sure they are just as good. Monitor, Aries, all of them essentially do the same thing. But I cannot speak highly enough of wind vane steering, particularly on that, Contessas and that sort of slightly slower boat. They don't really work on, 60-foot Imoccas, unfortunately, because they can't keep up with the speed. But none of us have got those. It is worth thinking about redundancy. So on my current race boat, the SJ320, I've got a built-in pilot, which is similar to the Evolution, but I went down the B&G route. But I have a completely separate electric pilot, a tiller pilot, a Simrad TP32, which is rated appropriately for a Contessa 32, and that's my backup because I can't fit wind vane steering on my SJ. So if you're going to go solo, particularly if you're going a bit further offshore, having that extra crew member that steers the boat is essential, fundamental. I hope that's, I'm not teaching to the converted, hopefully that's pretty obvious. So redundancy is a good thing. Easy reefing and sail handling is another thing. So as part of your training process for getting more confident with your solo sailing, it's good to know how to reef your boat all the way down to the third reef and all the way down to the storm jib in good conditions. You don't want to be doing it for the first time when you've got 40 knots over the deck. So again, this might seem really obvious, but just go, oh, this is a training weekend this weekend. I'm going out on my own. It's a nice force 4 and I'm going to have my storm jib ready because, you know, work out why it doesn't go up in 15 knots, not 50 knots. That's an important one. In fact, the first video on my YouTube series was me trying my trysail on the Westerly and putting that in the track and launching it because I hadn't done it for 3 years. I knew it fitted, but I just thought I haven't done this in so long. I just want to get it onto the boat and just check it actually, the slides all run and all that sort of good stuff so that if I need the trysail coming back across the Atlantic, I know that it fits and I haven't got that nagging doubt in my mind. Seeing what's out there and being seen is another big safety factor. So we're very lucky we have this thing called AIS these days. I imagine most of you have it. Who's got AIS? Who hasn't got AIS? Okay, let's do it the other way. Who hasn't got AIS on their boats? Okay. Highly recommended. Highly, highly recommended. It was a revelation. It really annoyed me. I had to buy an AIS transponder for doing the Azores and back in 2011. So I fitted it to the boat in 2010 when I did my qualifying passages. And I really begrudged how much it cost because I spent £800 or something like that buying this AIS transponder. Don't need one of these things. I've never had one. Grew up sailing when we had a chart and a piece of paper and dividers, and it really annoyed me. And then I sailed across the English Channel, across the shipping lanes, and I would just see ships altering course to go around me without me calling them. I was like, oh, I get it now. That's amazing. I could see exactly what they were doing. I could see their rate of turn. I would not have a boat without AIS now. It's as simple as that, even for coastal cruising, arguably. And a radar transponder is another biggie for me. Because it just makes sure that you are seen. And if you don't know what a radar transponder is, it's like a radar reflector, but it's an electronic device. It takes in the radar beam and it squirts it back out again at high power, and it just ensures that you are very, very visible. Obviously, it's a powered device. Like any powered device on your boat, it requires electricity. If you lose power, then you still need a passive radar reflector. I have to carry a passive radar reflector to meet racing regs. But having a radar transponder is a really, really lovely thing that ensures that you are seen, and the person on the bridge of the big ship that's coming up the channel at 20 knots has hopefully got half a chance of seeing you, even if you aren't pinging on his AIS system, which you should be. Obviously, there are many other safety options you've got out there. Personal locator beacons. I always have a personal locator beacon in my sailing trousers. It literally sits there. So as soon as I put my sailing trousers on, it's on me. And I have an AIS, personal AIS beacon, which is in my life jacket. I put my life jacket on, and you know, I almost always sail with my life jacket on. You know, that they are both well worth having, if only to keep the significant other person in your life happy, that you've got these bits of equipment on you, so you're doing all that you can to ensure that should the worst happen, you fall over the side, there's half a chance that the people who are looking for you will find you, or you can ask for help. The important thing about an AIS beacon, an important distinction is a PLB is basically an EPIRB. It requires a signal to be sent to a satellite, and then the satellite sends it down to an Earth station, and then it looks up what your code is, and it will send it then to your local Coast Guard, and all that takes time. And An AIS beacon is instant. Not only is it transmitting directly to local Coast Guard stations, it's also transmitting out to any other boats that are in the local area. And so I would say having a personal AIS beacon is way more valuable than a personal locator beacon, an EPIRB effectively. However, for offshore sailing, having a PLB or an EPIRB, which is effectively the only difference between a PLB and an EPIRB is how big the battery is. And how physically big the device is. But PLB and EPIRB essential for offshore, but AIS, personal beacons, way more useful for inshore sailing where there's lots of other boats around and you're in sight of land.
All-in-one solutions now. Yeah.
There are. In fact, the one that is in my life jacket is, I think,
PLB3?
I think it does both. But I still have my old PLB and my Salopets because I've got it, so. Yeah. The problem with the all-in-ones is they're quite chunky, unfortunately. And then, they're a little bit spendy. Yeah.
What about the fireworks, the smoke and so on? Do you carry them?
Yeah, so in terms of flares, pyrotechnics, I carry on my race boat and on the cruising boat. Well, I carry on the race boat what I'm required to carry by racing rules because I don't like them.
But nowadays you have the LED.
I have an LED, I have a red LED, LED flare. So you just twist the bottom and it flashes and it's super bright. And of course, it lasts a very much longer time than a pyrotechnic.
You don't have to replace it every year.
Exactly. You don't have to replace it every 5 years, just put new batteries in, or even in use. Oh, it's running out, no one's come to my aid. I'll just stick some new batteries in and I can tie it to a pole.
That's dangerous.
Yeah, absolutely. I personally really don't like pyrotechnic flares. I think they're quite dangerous. I'm not a big fan of having explosive devices on my boat. And so I carry what I'm required to carry for racing regs. But nothing more than that. But at the end of the day, that's a personal choice. Don't do it just because I say so. That's my personal choice, and we all have to kind of take into account our own decisions on those things. Preparing your boat and preparing supplies. This is obviously not necessary for a day sail. This was one of many lockers that were full of food for crossing the Atlantic on the way out. I crossed the Atlantic with my friend Mark, my partner at the time, and my daughter. And so there were 4 of us on board, so we had to have obviously food for 4 plus a bit spare. On the way back, I was solo. It's much easier to cater for just one mouth because you know what you like. And it's only one mouth to feed, so yeah. But in general, even if you're going out for a day sail, it is really worth thinking about, actually, I'm going to be out for 3 hours, 6 hours, 9 hours, whatever you're going to do. And when I go out racing, I have a little bag that's attached to the push pit, the rail at the back of the boat. And before I go racing, a couple of bottles of water go in there, a couple of cereal bars, a couple of chocky bars and what have you, so that if I can't get down below to grab an apple or grab something healthy, I can just grab a drink and I can sustain myself. I'm getting better at managing my food intake. I have sometimes struggled because I have in the past eaten the wrong things, and I've found my energy levels just drop off a cliff. And I've done quite a lot over the last 6 months to try and improve my diet and eat things which are much longer lasting. And so if you struggle in that same way, it is worth thinking about what sort of food you carry, and you know, things like nuts and trail mix and that sort of thing are great for sailing, because you could just grab a bag of nuts, it might have some dried fruit in there, and that's fabulous for keeping you going. Same for drinks. Obviously cold drinks if you can't get down below to make drinks, but if it is cold, being able to make a tea is great. Having a flask that's pre-made before you go out sailing is even better. I'm a big tea drinker. Coffee's also great, but it's more caffeine in that. It tends to make you want to go to the toilet quite a lot, I find, unfortunately. Easy access to clothing. If I know I'm going to be out for a few hours or longer, if I'm doing an overnight passage, I'll have all my clothes laid out ready so that I can quickly take my sailing jacket off, chuck another couple of layers on, put my sailing jacket back on, put my life jacket back on, and I'm there. I'm not having to hunt through bags to try and find my warm jumper that I want to put on. Just thinking ahead, to have that there is a massive win, particularly if you're racing. Hopefully I don't need to have to talk about life jackets. Do I? No? Good. Spare cylinders are a good thing to have though. For the last few years I've worn a Spinlock life jacket, and I absolutely swore by Spinlock. And if you've watched some of my sailing content on the channel, you've possibly seen that I've started wearing Mustang survival gear, including their life jacket, and they're not here, but I can genuinely say the Mustang survival life jacket is the most comfortable life jacket I have ever worn. It's a Spinlock are fantastic, but the Mustang one actually is even better somehow. It just, you just don't feel it. It moves with your body. It's been immensely well designed. So if you are looking for a life jacket, it's a big recommendation. Unfortunately, they are quite spendy, but you know, you only have to buy one every 8 to 10 years, hopefully, and carry some spare cylinders so that when you get drenched and it explodes on the foredeck, you can deflate it and put a new canister in, and away you go. Preparing yourself, so it's not just about the boat. Physically and mentally, we all have different capabilities, different strengths and weaknesses, both physically and mentally, but mentally is probably the bigger one, actually, particularly if you're heading off on a long passage. And I have got no qualms at all at admitting when I go off on a long passage, sometimes I get that horrible feeling in my stomach. You know, when I left St. Martin, going up to Bermuda, I was really doing the right thing, sailing away from that nice island there. It's quite a long way. But you get used to it. You know, it's good to push yourself out of your comfort zone. That's why, one of the reasons why I like solo sailing. And I think actually having that feeling is a very healthy thing, because it does force you and it makes you think about going solo sailing. I'd be more worried if I didn't feel a degree of anxiousness about taking on a big solo passage. I think that's very, very healthy. In terms of physical stuff, keeping reasonably physically fit in the off season is obviously a good thing to do. I'm lucky I have a fairly physical job, but I don't know, do people here do training outside of the sailing season to try and keep up muscles? Anyone? Yeah, a little bit, yeah. Good. I genuinely, I think it's really important. I mean, before I worked in the boat fixing business, I used to go down and I used to wet sand the bottom of my boat and make it all lovely and smooth and what have you. And I just think, well, it's cheaper than the gym. It's keeping me fit. This is just, you know, it's making the boat go faster and it's keeping my muscles moving, you know. So doing all that sort of stuff is really important. Just a very quick break to remind you that there is a thumbs up down below where you can like my video, and if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to Reef It and Sail Reef 2. I know all us YouTuberists like saying it. We say it for good reason. It really helps grow the channel. So if you could just do those two things now, it takes less than a second. That would be awesome. Right, on with the show. I talked about food already a little bit in terms of having enough. But it is, again, a really important one. In England, the British Army would say the army marches on its stomach. I don't know if you have a saying like that here, but food is so important on a long passage, and having plans around that is really nice. But it's also factoring in all the different weather conditions. So when again, crossing the Atlantic, I had meals that would take some preparation and take some time and effort to put together, which is actually a really nice thing to do, because frankly, a long passage has long periods of not a lot happening. And so thinking, oh, actually, I'm going to go and spend half an hour preparing a meal, is actually quite a nice way to fill some time. But you also need some stuff that you can just throw in your mouth. And I carried freeze-dried ration packs, and numerous different companies make them. And you open them up, pour in boiling water, seal them up, wait 10 minutes, and you've got actually not a bad meal. It's not exactly mum's home cooked food, but it's pretty decent, keeps you going. Stress, yeah, that comes back to that feeling in your stomach. when you're sailing away from land and you're not going to see any land for 7 days or longer. It's a very healthy thing, but at the same time it can also potentially stop you from finally untying the lines, and that actually partially links into don't rush. When I used to sail with a crew, sometimes they'd jump on the boat and they'd be eager to get going. And I was like, oh, okay, well, can we just hold on a minute? I just want to slow down. And when I'm teaching people, I sometimes say to them, sometimes it's okay to say to your crew, just all go and sit down for 5 minutes. I just want to go and do my own boat checks on my own boat to check that I'm happy, so that when I leave the harbour, I've not got this thing in the back of my head saying, oh, I didn't check how much oil was in the engine and there was that leak. I never quite... And there's nothing wrong, there's no shame in telling your crew to go, look, just go and have a cup of tea, just go away for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever. I just want to go and do my personal boat checks, walk around the boat, check everything's tied down, because there's nothing worse than going out and having that issue that crops up, which is so easily fixed. And that's where I'm saying, don't rush. It reduces your stress level. When I go sailing, when I'm going racing, even with Salk, which are just day sails mostly, the night before, I will have looked at the tides, I would have looked at the weather, I would have made some sandwiches, I'll have everything ready to go so that in the morning I can just get up and go and I'm not running around preparing things. Because if the boat's not prepared, it plays on my mind and it worries me, and then I don't perform to my best because I'm thinking about the things that are unknown to me. So make those unknowns known and move on and sleep as soundly as you can the night before a big passage, and also on passage, which we're going to come on to next. How am I doing for time? Okay, I think. Wrap it up though. Yeah, okay. Okay, we've got quite a few solo sailors here by the sounds of it. So how many of you solo sailors have sailed more than for a day sail? Okay, a few of you. How long have you sailed for in one stretch?
I think it was 4 nights.
4 nights? Okay, so long enough that you've really got to get some good sleeps in.
That's right.
Yeah.
Very difficult to catch some sleep, especially during the first 2 nights.
Yeah.
I'm always very awake during the first night. The second night, I start seeing hallucinations, all sorts of things, which are not frightening, but it's
Yeah, hallucinations are quite fun, aren't they? Yeah,
it is, that's right.
yeah, quite exciting. Yourself?
Yeah, 72 hours.
72 hours, yeah. Can't...
Here is one.
The Azores, on your own, yeah? 12, you said you went down in 12 days?
Slept for real.
Good, good. I mean, that's the thing. Once you get off the continental shelf, on your way to the Azores, there's not a lot of traffic out there, actually, because all the big cargo ships are all going down the coast. There's very, very little that's out in the Atlantic. Short trips, obviously, you don't need to do a lot of sleep other than trying to get a good night before. If it ends up being a long day sail, caffeine can do a lot, but unfortunately, at least for me, it has side effects of needing to go to the loo quite a lot. Too much information, oversharing. Longer trips, you know, you've got to work out what works for you, and it's actually a really nice thing to do, to try and practice. It sounds a bit silly, but if you have the opportunity to go off and do a 300-mile qualifier before, I say a 300-mile qualifier because I'm thinking about the Azores and back, but you know, if you can go off and have the opportunity to do that, it's a great thing to learn how your body responds to both cat naps and slightly longer sleeps, and they're two very different things. I've done quite a lot of research through reading around the subject, around what's called polyphasic sleep, which is effectively what dogs do. You know, they sleep a bit, they wake a bit, they do some stuff, they go back to sleep a bit, and they're brilliant animals at sleeping just for short periods of time. But you can actually really refresh yourself with those 30 to 40 minute cat naps, polyphasic sleep periods, because you just go down into a deep enough sleep, it really restores your body, and then set your alarm for 30 minutes and you'll wake up and you'll be surprised at how refreshed you will feel after a 30 to 40 minute sleep. And after 2 days of doing that, it's completely normal. You just don't think about it. When I crossed the Atlantic, I didn't sleep, apart from one occasion when I slept in, I didn't sleep for more than 30 or 40 minutes for 2 weeks, day and night. And it was fine. You just get into the habit of doing it. But even during the daytime, I felt a little bit sleepy or whatever, I would just find the corner of the cockpit or down below, set an alarm, and just a little 10 minutes. It's so restorative, and I'll do it doing a race across the channel, maybe not on the way there, but I might be tired on the way back. And I'll just have a little nod, there's nothing around, I've set my AIS alarm, it's going to alarm if anything is going to get close, and just have a little 5 minutes. It takes a bit of practice, funnily enough, to sleep. You wouldn't think it, because it's actually quite nerve-wracking that first time when you're on your own and you go down below and put your head on a pillow and you're listening to the boat moving and you can hear the water rushing by and you think, shit, there's no one on the deck. And I'm supposed to sleep and I'm in the middle of nowhere. But you just have to learn to switch that bit of your brain off and trust in the systems. You have to trust that. Thank you, Rima. Yeah, just trust in the AIS, trust in the fact that ships can see you, and the reality is that once you're off the continental shelf, if you're doing a big trip, there's hardly anything about. It really is. And that's where it comes on to how much traffic there is. Obviously, if you're sailing around the English Channel, if you're sailing in the North Sea, if you're sailing in this area, there's a lot more going on, so it's hard to get those sleeps in on your own. But when you're away from land, it's much, much easier. That's my lovely daughter. When we were crossing the Atlantic, that was her playpen. So she crossed the Atlantic age 18 months old. And she still sails now. Haven't put her off yet. What is next? What is next? There we go. We're done, folks. You told me to wrap it up. Who has got questions on boat fixing, on this, on anything? I'm more than happy to answer anything you have. Rima.
About seasickness.
Seasickness, yeah. Yeah, I get seasick. I chose the wrong sport. Do you get seasick?
No.
Oh. Yeah.
I do not sail solo long distances. So,
Okay.
and normally I'm always in the cockpit. So.
Yeah. Who suffers from seasickness?
I don't, but I take medication.
You take medication? Yeah.
Always. Non-stop.
Yeah. I do for the first. I do for the first 24 to 48 hours, or I do if I feel it coming on. But I find for me that it's anxiousness that feeds into the seasickness feeling. But once I'm away, and the older I'm getting, the better I am at not feeling seasick. But generally speaking, once I've got through the first 48 hours, I'm absolutely fine. I could be upside down in the boat, reading a book. I'm absolutely fine. But it did come back. So when I was coming across the Atlantic, I was closing in on the Azores, and there was a low pressure system that was just in my way. I could see it dropping down, and it had 40, 45 knot wind and 5 to 7 meter waves, and it was just like, oh, that's not very pleasant. And that brought the seasickness back because of anxiousness. And it took me probably a few hours to work that out. And as soon as I realised, I only feel unwell because I'm anxious, it just went away. But I had to start singing to myself and doing all sorts of things to distract myself from the fact that this weather was coming, because I'd done everything I could to prepare the boat. I decided to take a route that was going to take me slightly in the rock direction and route me around the top of this low pressure system that was heading down towards the Azores. And it wasn't very nice for a period of time, but got through it. But yeah, seasickness is multiple causes.
Technical question.
Yeah.
My valves of the cockpit drains, they are located not far from the gearbox. And
The valves, the seacocks?
Yeah, the seacocks.
Yeah.
And I have to make space for my waterlock.
Yeah.
The waterlock now is too high. You know, you had the same problem, I think.
Yeah, you need to try and get it as low as possible, yeah.
Get it low as possible. So
Yeah.
I have to. I know some boats they have taken the seacocks and they place them more to the sides.
Yeah.
But then I don't think the hoses are crossed. Is it a problem?
No, it's not a problem. No, if you wanted to, you could glass up the holes for your seacocks and relocate them further up. The key thing is where the static waterline is going to be. So when the boat is heeled over, the static waterline is always going to be where the static waterline is. As long as the valve is below the waterline, it's no problem. It's as simple as that. People get very worked up about seacock locations for things, but the reality is when the boat's heeling over one way or another, or when it's flat, as long as you know where the static waterline is in relation to the seacock and it's underwater, I can't see that there would ever be a problem of moving it out slightly. Rima?
Risk management?
Yes?
What are your thoughts on ditching the spinnaker and the spinnaker boom altogether and go asymmetrical?
I like symmetrical spinnakers. So the question, if you didn't hear it, is essentially, is an asymmetric spinnaker safer or less risky than a symmetrical kite because you don't have a spinnaker pole? A lot of people do think so, but I'm not one of them. I don't think there's anything fundamentally that dangerous about using a symmetrical kite, or anything fundamentally more dangerous about using a spinnaker pole and a symmetrical kite. One, actually, there's a lot to be said in safety of getting somewhere fast, because the sooner you're there, the less time you are in a dangerous position out offshore at sea. And if it's faster to sail downwind without having to sail an angle because you're flying a symmetrical kite, then it's the safer option from that point of view. Secondly, the spinnaker pole isn't always waving around all over the place. You can fix it in one location. It is located by triangulating the downhaul, the uphaul, and the guy. And so once everything's tensioned up, that pole is pretty much static. It's just going to sit there. It shouldn't be waving around all over the place unless the uphaul, the downhaul, or the guy are loose. And so, again, it's perfectly, I can't see that it's perfectly, I don't think it's going to be any more dangerous than having a spinnaker tacked down to a bowsprit or just a tack line on the bow fitting. The difficulty is getting these things down, as always. And so some people like snuffers, which is a very good option. It takes a lot of worry out of dropping a kite, although they're not perfect, and some snuffers are better than others. If you're going to have a snuffer, I would say the only one that I would have would be using the snuffer opening that's made by ATN, because it's oval as opposed to round. And that is much easier to pull down because it's actually the shape of kind of the sail. When you're pulling it down, it's going through a slot rather than a circle. So, but for me, I don't think A sails are any safer personally, but that's my view. I would rather have the ability to sail deep and fast rather than having to sail the angles. Does that answer your question? It's just a view. Next, anyone else? Or do you all want to go to the bar and you've had enough of me talking nonsense?
Well, maybe another one about sailing.
Sure.
If you say that about your preference for spinnaker.
Yeah.
I also noticed that you have a furling general.
Yeah.
But do you use the number one then, or the number two, or do you change that?
So on my old Contessa, when I was racing that solo, on the Westerly, and now on my SJ320, I have a furling jib or a furling genoa, and I always have that as my largest head sail. And then if I want to use a smaller head sail, I always use an inner forestay. And on the inner forestay, I can put a number 3 or a number 4 or a storm jib. And so on the Contessa, I just used a number 4, so a heavy weather jib and a storm jib. On the Westerly, in fact, that picture you saw a little way back, was, that's kind of like a number 3.5 hanked on to an inner forestay, but I've also had this sail modified so it's reefable, and so as well as being able to tack it there, it also has a tack position there, and so I can drop the whole thing down and take, I'm going to say, 1.5 meters out of the bottom of that sail, so it turns it into a number 4, and that's a really nice sail combination, because I only have to have one sail and it does 2 jobs as you go up the wind range. And my SJ320 is pretty much the same. So I have an inner forestay, but it's Dyneema on that boat as opposed to stainless steel. And I've got a number 4 and a storm jib that goes on it. So you don't have to take the sail off the furler.
Yeah, because for solar sailing, my line of thinking was to combine a number 2 Genoa on a furling jib.
Yep.
With a Genoa for
Yeah.
if you want to be.
Yep. Absolutely. So yeah, on my Contessa, I had my racing head sail was quite a lot smaller than maximum size. I think it was about 128%, something like this, 29 square meters.
Yeah.
So it's about number 2 size-ish, but I also had a code 0. So I could sail upwind at 50 degrees off the wind with the code 0, which was massive. And that worked really well. But a Genica would do the same job, but with a Genica you're probably not going to sail as high as you would with a code 0, because a code 0 is, people get confused. Code 0 is an upwind sail, predominantly. A Genica and a asymmetric sail, generally they're reaching sails, they're not upwind sails. You can sail a bit upwind with them, but code 0 is 100% an upwind sail. So they're cut very flat. Does that answer the question? I go off on a tangent sometimes and just start talking. Next, there was another one. Yeah. Hey.
If you carry wind vane self-steering
Yes.
and the transom,
Yeah.
where do you mount your boarding ladder?
There isn't. No. Everything's a compromise on a boat. I had a boarding ladder that was in a bag. It was a flexible one, so it had plastic rungs and webbing sides, and it was like an emergency ladder actually, and it had a little bit of string that used to dangle down, so if I fell in the water and the boat wasn't sailing, obviously if the boat's sailing it's gone, but I could pull that and the little boarding ladder would fall down. It was just tied to the lower rung of the push pit, but it wasn't easy to use. The answer is there isn't a good solution to that if you want a fixed boarding ladder. Some people have tried having them mounted to the side of the boat, and they have like a stainless steel kind of folding boarding ladder. It's not. Yeah, there isn't on a Contessa. There is only so much real estate on the stern, so there isn't an easy solution. So what I did was this folding, kind of plastimo folding ladder thing that was okay in a push. I didn't do a lot of swimming though.
Have you ever tried to self-steer with your Genoa?
No.
Genoa sheets?
No.
Some people say
Yeah, yeah.
depends on the boat.
I never tried. I've self-steered in a race back across the channel using bungee, so stretchy rope, because my ST2000 broke off Cap de la Hague, and all I had was some bungee, and I was tired and I balanced the sails as best I could, and I just tightened the bungee on one side so it could move a little bit, but it steered for a couple of hours quite happily like that, and I just sort of nodded off in the corner and kept an eye on it occasionally, and that works. But no, I never tried the Genoa to.
Yeah, some people say it can.
Yeah. I've never known anyone make it work. In theory, I think it would. Yeah. Anyone else?
Maybe a final one?
Go for it. Yeah.
Okay. The biggest learning potential is often in the most embarrassing situations.
Yes.
I think we've all been there. We've all experienced some moments where we say, "Well, phew, I should have thought that a little bit more through."
Yeah, we all do stupid stuff.
Are you willing to share some of yours?
Oh, I've done so many stupid things.
What was the biggest learning potential for all of us?
Probably the biggest learning potential for all. So the worst damage I did to my Contessa was racing it down to the Azores. I suspect I had maybe, but it's impossible to say. There may have been some slight delamination failure already on the port side, just because it's what sometimes happens to older Contessas. However, on the way down to the Azores, we had, so it was myself and Mark, we were doing it two-handed. We had about 4 days of headwinds, We had about 4 days of headwinds in, I don't know, 24 to 30 knots. And yeah, big enough seas that it was getting unpleasant. But it wasn't too bad until we went over an area which I found out afterwards. There's a big trench in the middle of the Atlantic as you go down to the Azores. And yeah, you got sort of 3,000, 3,000 meters, 9,000 or 6,000, and then it comes up to 2,000, and it all settles out again. And the seas really kick up nastily there. And, you know, we were pushing the boat reasonably hard, and the sea state got worse and worse and worse, and I should have eased off the gas. I should have slowed the boat down, brought it more upright, and just generally treated the boat more kindly. But what actually happened was I was just smashing this boat as hard as I could. We came off a wave and the boat landed on its side. It fell off a wave and just made this horrible crunching sound. It was like, oh, that didn't sound very good. But again, it's night, you can't really see what you're doing, what have you. And I think at that point we did though go, okay, it's maybe time to sort of back off a little bit. But we took a lot of very, very heavy landings. In fact, when we got to the Azores, the guy ended up doing a temporary repair, thought we'd hit a whale. Because he said, well, I've seen this damage before, it's quite localised in this area. And I thought, well, it's a really great story. So that's the one I'll tell in the pub. But the reality is, you know, there is only so much strength in any of these boats. And I was pushing the boat a little bit too hard and came off a big wave. And so I learned that lesson, and that lesson was kind of came to the fore when I was coming back across the Atlantic in big waves in that boat, avoiding that low pressure system I talked about earlier. Big rolling kind of 5, 6, 7 meter swells. You know, you go down and then you kind of rise up on it and go down. And on the nights when it was at its worst, I was still pushing along with a very, very rolled up Genoa, doing 6 knots or something like that, and it was slamming like crazy, and the noise that was going through the boat, it's not a Contessa, this thing's got quite a flat forefoot, much like my SJ, and the noise is awful. And I was down below trying to sleep, and I couldn't sleep because of the noise. I was like, no, got to do it, got to get up on deck, filled the Genoa up until it was just a tiny little scrap. I actually already had the storm jib tacked on the inner stay because I was worried. I thought I was going to avoid the wind and only have 30 knots, 30, 32 knots, and that's actually what I got. The predict wind forecast was absolutely bang on for my routing around the low pressure system, but I had the storm jib ready to go. But it was, yeah, middle of the night. I just didn't really want to go on deck and faff about, I was going to swear then, faff about with the inner forestay and get the storm jib up. So I just rolled the Genoa right up to nothing, had 3 reefs in as I did there, and just slowed the boat down, came off the wind 10 degrees, the boat came upright, I was hitting the waves at a different angle, and the boat was just happier. And I wasn't racing anyway. Well, I was sort of racing a French family, but I wasn't racing, and so it's just like, protect the boat, I'm on my own. And so yeah, that was a big lesson. You know, I did enough damage to my Contessa, I nearly wrote it off. So yeah, but we all do stupid stuff, right? Go for it.
How many boats do you have fixed?
How many boats have I fixed? Oh my goodness. Great question. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. I've done, because the thing is, I do big refits. So like Project Lottie was a big refit. Colmere was a big Contessa 32 refit, which wasn't on the channel. I've done a lot on a boat called Minstrel Boy, and he wants to come back this year and have a second crack at doing some more work. I've got a boat, I believe, coming over from the Netherlands this year actually, which is just another top to toe, do everything job. But then I do those big jobs, but I also do lots of little jobs. So, you know, I'll go down, I've got a Contessa that is opposite this boat actually, which has got water in its fuel tank, and I need to go and clean its fuel tank out and do that. So, so with a mixture of the little jobs and the big jobs, I've probably worked on a couple of hundred Contessa 32s and a number of other boats as well, but they range from small jobs to big jobs. Answer your question?
Yes.
You're welcome. That was a great question to end on, I think, unless anything else is burning.
I think so. George, I think any burning questions can be asked in the bar afterwards as well.
I have one thing I've got to do.
Can I do this one first and then you do yours? Is that okay?
Okay.
So we just wanted to take a moment to say a huge, huge thank you. So I think it's fantastic of you to come all the way from the UK to tell us and share your wisdom. But not only that, right? You've only also taken time away from a romantic weekend in Amsterdam.
That's okay.
It's not just you we have to thank.
Oh, wow.
But for both of you, something I think that also features heavily on Refit and Sail. There's always time for cups of tea.
There absolutely is, yes, always. Thank you very much.
And something nice.
Oh, and Tony's chocolate. We were just talking about Tony's chocolate. We love it. Thank you very, very much. Thank you. Okay, folks, well, that's quite enough from me on solo sailing. I need to finish getting this boat ready so I can jump aboard. I hope you enjoyed that. I'm actually sailing this double-handed, but I will be using some of the tips and tricks that I've talked about in this episode to manage sleep and all that sort of good stuff. So I will see you again very soon on Refit and Sail. Remember to give me a thumbs up and hit the subscribe button as well. I'll see you very soon. Bye for now.